As best I can tell, the original Let It Die is still making a decent amount of money, and so Super Trick Games wants a game which attracts a different set of players so the two can operate parallel without cannibalizing each other. Because the question is asked, why not just give us Let It Die 2? Let It Die Inferno is my first foray into the extraction genre, but I don't think the core concept is really that big a departure from the original game or any other game where you gather resources then scamper off when things get too hairy. What does separate it from the original is that multiple players are supposed to be playing in the same field at the same time to challenge the environment, and players can attack each other to loot resources. So for the sake of balance, there is a constant forward momentum which prevents a player getting too overpowered and dominating players struggling to get their foot in the door. However, when you die, not only use items in your regular inventory, but the passive bonuses acquired from each successful return to base. In the first game, equipment was destructible, and everything you found in the Tower of Barbs was worn down and partially spent. That's why most of frugal players' time would be spent on R&D to improve your gear that would be in prime condition. This time around, crafting gets you randomized bonuses, but better equipment requires a higher body rank, and the deeper you go into Hell's Gate, the early level gear is totally obsolete. From what I can tell, the optimum way to play is to hoard kill coins until you can regularly buy stuff from the auctions that are up to the challenges in later areas. Of course, the auctions are dependent on a healthy player base to supply the gear in the first place. I am terrible at the combat. Won't pretend otherwise. But so many of the issues with the game are rooted in the online component and this mistaken belief the game will draw enough active players. Case in point, progressing through one character's subplot hinges on participation in Death Jamboree, the exclusively PvP portion of the game that nobody plays after trying it once because there are no benefits. And unlike Deathverse, you don't have any customization options in that mode to express yourself and at least look cool before getting smoked. On Fridays and Saturdays, Death Jamboree turns into the Knuckles and Iron League, a team-based competition trying to score points. This mode is actually kind of fun, and participation can accrue in-game rewards, so there's actually a point besides trophy hunting. Then there's this reincarnation system, in short. Everything resets every few months, and most of the stuff we acquired goes out the window. They insist on this being a great time for new players to jump in, but I predict this is the moment that Let It Die Inferno does in fact die. Even the biggest die-hard players are going to have a hard time staying invested in a game where everything they work for crumbles in front of them. When Yoko Taro trolls his players into deleting their save data, it's at the end of a very long journey with compelling story reasons and some catharsis. Deathverse was the first follow-up to Let It Die, and for all my issues with that game, it floors me how this supposed course correction is so many times worse that I dropped the game entirely before finishing most of the goals I set out for myself. Let It Die Inferno is such a terrible game that after Deathverse was shut down, I would have been happier if they did nothing and we could all imagine a better game.